Joseph changed his mind. Joseph was a good Jew. He was an upright man. The law was everything to him. He was doing what he thought he was supposed to do as a good Jew, which was to follow the law. And the law said, divorce her. But not only was Joseph observant of his religion, it was in him, it was in Joseph, to be a just and merciful man as well. Observant as he was, Joseph made a decision to be a good Jew and divorce Mary. But in his mercy, he chose to do it quietly so as not to embarrass her or shame her. But then Joseph changed his mind. Rather than see Mary as a problem, he saw Mary as a person. He changed his mind and he married her. And he took to himself her child, Jesus, as his own. His merciful heart caused him to change his mind. Can you tell us a story of a time you changed your mind? Perhaps a story about how you changed your mind about God, about how God works in the world, about what God is really like from what you thought about God, especially when you were younger. Can you tell us a story about how you changed your mind about yourself, who you are, how you're doing, what you want from life, and what is yours to do in this life? Can you tell us a story about how you changed your mind about yourself? How about Jesus? Can you tell us a story of how you changed your mind about Jesus? How about a relationship in your life and what its future might be or not? How about what it means to be Catholic? Have you ever changed your mind about what Catholic looks like for you in this world from what you used to think it looked like in this world? There are so many who left the church for a long time and then changed their mind and came back to the church, or vice versa. How about a person? Can you ever think of a time when you changed your mind about somebody whom perhaps you didn't like at first, even a relative, even an in-law? You really didn't like him or her for a long time, and then you changed your mind. And perhaps even he or she has become one of your best friends. Or how about a group of people? Have you ever changed your mind about a whole group of people, perhaps because of their political party and how you used to view them or not? How about the community called LGBTQ, the community of gay and lesbian sisters and brothers of ours? Did you grow up with an attitude towards them that perhaps over the years you sort of changed your mind about them? About how you used to see them and perhaps you don't now? I asked that question of several students just this past week, and I have to tell you, the ways they shared they have changed their mind ended up challenging me about many things. Joseph changed his mind. And there are several instances, actually in the Gospels, where Jesus changed his mind. And you can be assured that if they put those in the text of the Gospels, this happened because this doesn't, at least the way we tend to look at things, make a person look like God if he changed his mind. But he did change his mind. Jesus had an understanding of what his mission was. And there's a point in the Gospel when you can see he's struggling mightily with this. As a matter of fact, a Jewish woman asked him for help. And he said, no, I don't do that. I help the Jews. But in that moment, he changed his mind. and he helped her. He did that several other times too. At first his prayer was, God, let this cup pass from me because I can't do it. And then within that prayer time, however long it was, in that garden that night, he changed his mind. Said, not my will. I'm giving it to you, God. Your will be done. In a real sense, he changed his mind about dying. And how about Peter? Peter, you devil, he called him at one point. You're a devil. You're leading me in all the wrong directions. And then he changed his mind. And he called Peter the rock of the church, the first pope, we referred to him as. This one he once called a devil. He changed his mind about a person. Gospel life requires the ability to change our minds. Let me say that again. It can't be clearer from the text. The gospel life requires the ability to change our mind. Even about hard-won, firmly ensconced convictions. Sometimes the gospel says we need to do a 180 in our thinking. Sometimes we need to give things a second thought. Sometimes some ideas in our lives merit further consideration and study. We can amend our thoughts. We can reassess. We can revise. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing to change our minds. It's a good thing to free up our thinking from the old ways and the walls of fear we built around those ideas, to think outside of what we assumed to be true up until now. Metanoia, it's a big Greek word. Metanoia essentially is a word about conversion, and it literally means metanoia, to change our minds. And as William James wrote, we will never change our lives if we don't change our minds. If you don't change your mind, you will not change your life. Metanoia, a form of conversion, a requirement of the spiritual life. And it is a requirement, as any business person here could tell you, it's also a requirement of a successful life. No one will be a success if they can't change their mind. It is a good thing to change our mind. A good thing. Joseph was open to this metanoia, this change of mind, which then changed his behavior towards Mary once he changed his mind. And if the one we call the Son of God can change his mind, and you and I can't think this morning of a time when we really, truly changed our mind about something, there's a problem. There's a disconnect. This takes a lot in a person to be willing to change our minds. It takes a lot. It's an unusual ability in this world to hear things from another perspective than the way we always used to see them, than our own, if we are to change our mind. It takes faith. It actually takes faith that the truth is bigger. The truth is bigger than anything I've heard or known or understood up until now, and that will always be true until the day we die. Therefore, there's an incredible virtue that it takes in us to be willing to change our mind. And you've probably guessed it already. Utter humility. Utter humility. And it's so hard sometimes to muster that humility, to be willing to say, well, out loud, I guess I might have been wrong. Dialogue and conversation get stuck when people cannot change their minds. People's opinions come between them and others. Do we really want our ideas to keep human beings away from us because we disagree and they won't see it our way? Do we really want to do that in life? This is a whole new level of loneliness we're introducing ourselves to that perhaps we've never really known before, like we're knowing it now. We human beings, I will never understand this all the way, but I'm trying to understand it, and I got some of my mentors out there trying to do some studies about this, but we seem to have this unbelievable ability to disregard data that everybody else sees except me, but I can't hear that. I can't hear that. But we all do this. I see some of you chuckling and elbowing each other right now like, yeah, that's what's his name or what's her name? This is you. You and I have an unbelievable ability to disregard data that doesn't fit our understanding of the world or of life. We disregard facts, fact check, that should be included in my thinking, and therefore I end up living in the untruth, as surely as the church did around Galileo. I mean, the church, I'm not saying anything liberal or radical to say our church screwed up with Galileo, and for centuries we held to this for some reasons. We thought if we admitted we were wrong, it would confuse the faithful. Well, it probably would have, actually, in the 1500s, but the truth is, we confused them even more about whether or not they can trust the church if we can't tell the truth when it becomes clear, even if it's going to upset people. There's hardly, I think it's fair for me to say this, there's hardly a less attractive quality in a person than that they be perceived as closed-minded, small-minded, or on the other side, weak-minded. People who keep data or thoughtful opinions away from thinking about, keep them at bay. People who do that and essentially plug their ears lose people's respect. If you are doing that, you are losing people's respect, and they are being pushed further and further away from any sort of possibility of connection with you. We all do this. We can be so stubborn. Has your spouse ever told you how stubborn you are? Is that something you also disagree with? If you think you're not like this, maybe the first thing you need to change your mind about is that. I would go so far as to say that currently the cutting edge of the biggest problems in our country is that people are not willing to change their minds about anything. And we hold with such vehemence to our opinions. We're not willing to see things from another's perspective and figure out why they're saying that. When I mediate, if you will, husbands and wives disputes, and there's several of those, what ends up happening is, oh, I never saw it like that. I just assumed she was out to hurt me or be ignorant or be lazy or be selfish, when actually they had a really good reason for saying that or doing that I didn't even know until we started talking. That's almost always the truth. Almost always the truth is that people have good reasons, at least in their mind, for doing what they did. They didn't mean to hurt you. But we come on with this, we enter into conflict with this vehemence. And we enter into these conversations not wanting to learn and see things differently, but wanting to convince. And it's not working anymore to live like this. And in the end, we're so bullheaded and stubborn that we might be adding to the problems of the world instead of helping the world towards heaven. Just this week, I got caught up in a debate about politics. It was just a couple of nights ago. You know, you can see sometimes why people make it a rule to not talk about politics and religion at the dinner table because we have such strong feelings. Well, I have strong feelings about everything, including the golf course in Forest Park. And so, I never told you this before, but one of my prayers every Sunday morning without fail is that I don't sound more convinced about something than I should be. Really, I mean that. I don't want to overemphasize something that I, or even the church, cannot say with absolute certitude. And so I pray every Sunday morning, God, forgive me for the ideas I put out there with more conviction than they deserve. Because I end every sentence with an exclamation point. But it's not fair to you, and I'm learning that from my friends who are honest with me. But it became clear that my opinion, to me, it became clear that my opinion no longer held water. And I have to tell you, I was embarrassed at that point to admit, in front of these 5 people, before whom I was just minutes ago intensely holding to that opinion. There was sort of a level of embarrassment to say, and I love these folks. I mean, we have awesome friendships, but there was such an intensity to my opinion that it made it almost embarrassing to back off. Sometimes, this is Gary Brown, I just wish my grip was not so tight on ideas, so white-knuckled around an idea that it becomes too hard to change my mind, especially in front of other people. Or that my pride, I wish my pride did not make it so hard to change my mind. Or that my fear did not make it so hard to change my mind. The image I imagine as making this work is this. Certainly, my friends, there's a place for conviction. Oh my gosh. We have to have conviction in our life. We have to have a place to stand in this world, or we will stand no place in this world. But never at the expense of being open-minded. Never so sure that we're right that we stop listening on anything, even the things that deserve our conviction. And never should our ego or our triumphalism ever win the day in the name of conviction that is really just us being rude and overwhelming another human being. That can almost be a violence. It can almost be bullying. And I think there's a level we all bully each other with our ideas. So the image I have is of us, perhaps, being simultaneously rooted yet open. Rooted yet open. Planted in our tradition, and still leaning into the sunlight of new studies, new data, new perspective, new circumstances and situations and demands. Rooted, planted in our tradition, and still leaning to the light, reaching for the light of new ideas, and being both and being willing to live in that tension and not being afraid. What makes Joseph so beautiful is his merciful heart opened the door to him, for him to change his mind. His merciful heart opened the door for him to change his mind. And the rest is history. Because he changed his mind, we have something to do next Sunday called Christmas. How about you? Please, please, please be honest with yourself. How about you? Have you ever asked for forgiveness for being so convinced about how you think that you bowl people over and refuse to listen? How about you? Are you open to changing your mind about one, even just one of those tightly held convictions of yours? How about you? St. Joseph,